Ooh. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I'm Oliver the Ricketts.
I'm Brittany, and I'm in a different shirt.
I'm Jeremy Kessler.
And I'm Marco.
We're going to see Yesterday, which is the Beatles movie about the guy who is the only person who remembers the Beatles, the only person who knows that the Beatles existed and knows their music, and then he starts playing their songs as if they're his own. I guess.
Is that the concept? I
Yeah.
always interpret it as he was transported to a different world where they were not famous.
Where there are no Beatles, because if everybody just forgot what happened to all the records and the CDs.
It's like I saw it as being the invention of lying, where he just one day he just realizes this is it. Then nobody knows this, and
I guess we'll really find out when we see
ride
the
with
movie.
it.
I think it's an interesting concept. I love this premise. I hope that they do a little more with it, though, than just this guy knows the Beatles songs and then he gets famous.
And doesn't realize he's in love with the girl that he's loving.
Oh, I fucking hope they don't play that shit up.
Of course they're going to.
They're gonna play it. It's Lily James, okay?
And that's great.
How do you not know you're in love with her?
I can't wait to hear her sing.
I hope she sings. I
I'm
swear to
sure
God,
she
I'll
does.
walk out of the fucking theater. Probably because it's going to be over when I realize. But
I was going to say, you won't know until the
Clearly,
end.
some of us have a lot of strong opinions about this movie already.
No,
I just feel
really
like this is such a cool concept that you can do so much stuff with, especially with talking about pop culture. And would the Beatles even be popular right now if they weren't ingrained in the pop culture already? And would the songs come out the same? And I hope that they play with that a little more. But if you heard "Let It Be" on the radio tomorrow, would it still be a hit? I don't think so.
it's not the sound of today's music.
Right.
Right.
I think that's a concept that's really cool. And then also, you have different people and different producers involved. You're not going to get the same songs. You're going to have different demands on what the music needs to be.
I'm sure he'll grapple with that too, because I'm sure at some point in time they're going to tell him that they don't like the sound of the music anymore,
Right.
and they want him to
change the words to "Hey dude."
Well, yeah, hey dude.
Yeah.
Right, we did see that.
And they're going to tell him they don't like the sound of the music anymore, and they're going to want him to do something that's more pop or more dance or more club, and to make himself more popular as an artist. And he knows how good the music is.
Right.
So I'm sure he's not going to want to compromise on that.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, and then you could do a whole thing of, would you do it? Because obviously it's not right to steal all the Beatles music, but also if you're living in...
they don't exist.
Right. If you're living in a world where nobody... If you're of the mindset that the Beatles is the greatest band of all time, which a lot of people are, I personally am not in that camp. If you think that the Beatles is the best music of all time, isn't the right thing to do to share that music the way that it is, whether you're stealing it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm most looking forward to seeing who it ends up being when they're on, I think was it James Corden?
Yeah.
When they see, there's two people claiming that they wrote it. Either
That's
it's going to be a
Ringo
random
Paul.
celebrity cameo and it's going to be funny. Fingers crossed it's like Jack Black and Justin Long from Walk Hard and Dewey Cock.
I'm worried that it's going to be slow is my only thing. The pace, I'm just worried the pacing is going to be slow. Hopefully it's not.
What I can say about Danny Boyle in response to that, though, is that while his movies are not exactly fast-paced, he definitely makes a clear effort to do something interesting the whole time, so that even when it's moving slow, you are focused on something and it is interesting. So if this is like his other stuff, I'm not as worried about that just based on the director. We just got out of seeing Yesterday.
I think that I wasn't too crazy about this movie. I think that definitely the most disappointing part about the movie for me is that it didn't actually seem to be about the whole Beatles premise, and that it just wanted to be about this love story that was largely unrelated to that. And I don't know why you would do that. If you had an interesting premise, you wouldn't make the story that you were trying to tell center around that premise.
And what I will say is that while the movie is focusing on the actual premise of this guy is the new one-man Beatles, it's good. It's very good. And the thing that's stopping it from being great, and I hate to say it because I love Lily James, but it's the whole Lily James arc to me, because, you know, we said it's not, if it's not about the Beatles, then what is it about? And the thing is, every movie is a fucking romance movie. I don't need another one, especially when you have something more interesting to do.
Yeah, I was saying that when we were inside, that I felt like it was very much a love story as opposed to the premise that is being marketed, I believe, which is that it's about, oh, this is the one guy in the world who remembers the Beatles. I mean, that happens, but the underlying story is between the main character and Lily James, and their love story, and their kind of right place, wrong time, like, you know, over and over and over again kind of thing. And I mean, I love Lily James, I really do, but I just felt like it was a little off topic and not as interesting, unfortunately.
Right.
I guess I'm the crazy one here because I knew going in that this was going to be a love story. I mean, based on the trailers, I mean, yeah, it's a little misleading, but I knew pretty much the whole time that this was going to end up being essentially a rom-com through the use of the whole premise of the Beatles story. And I mean, I don't have an issue with it, but I guess that's just because I was anticipating it going in.
I mean, I guess it could have worked if that premise had at all been more tied in with what was going on with the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you can take that part of the movie, cut it out of this premise, and just make it about a guy who writes a hit song, and it's the same thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. Right, correct.
Well, right. The movie, not only could you do it,
like
the movie
my
exists.
favorite, like my favorite movie ever.
Right, the movie existed. You've seen it 1,000 times,
Exactly
you know?
what I was-
Which is a shame, because the movie actually does have a lot of really cool ideas about the Beatles themselves, you know, and while I personally think it's bullshit that the Beatles could get that kind of audience anymore, there's some really cool scenes in here about how we wouldn't get the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And how the music industry has changed and how show business works. And so if you're interested in anything like that, it's worth checking the movie out just for that. It's just a shame that we couldn't have gotten that more.
Yeah, I actually feel like his rise to stardom and his popularity was almost like undersold a bit. And it's like if he really was becoming that popular overnight and people really were like amazed by him and, you know, the songs that he was producing, that it should have been a much bigger deal in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
and I feel like it was getting the time, but it was always, in my opinion, playing second fiddle to the love story.
Right. I think the thing is, even if you look at this like it's a very good movie about a guy who wrote a hit song, at the end of the movie they try to bring in themes about guilt and about, you know, artistic license and things like that, which are just better than what they were doing the whole movie. And I feel like because it's a movie about a guy who stole all of his songs, you could have done so many cool things with that. Just from the trailer sells it that he's gonna get caught, you know, and spoiler, that doesn't fucking happen. At least not the way they sell.
Yeah, the James Corden part
is
is
the dream
very,
sequence.
Yeah, that was annoying.
That was
Completely obnoxious.
Yeah.
further than annoying. That was some bullshit.
Yeah. One thing I did appreciate about this movie is that where there were times where I was kind of saw myself predicting what was going to happen, they kind of took it in a different route. Like when you see the dude in Russia that seems to kind of recognize it, and then you see the lady in Liverpool that seems to recognize it, and then it turns out that they're just actually happy that he's sharing the music with the world. You know, that kind of fake out, and then like at the same time it also annoys me because I also feel like that they had liberties to do other things, to be more creative in that instance, like with the whole fact that they kept going over and over about he didn't remember the words to Eleanor Rigby. With Lily James's character being named Ellie, I was anticipating him maybe changing the words to then write the song about her. Or there was also the fact that, you know, the first song, I said this to you at the final concert, when, you know, he's going to profess his love to her, and, you know, Wonderwall was the first song that he played, and Oasis doesn't exist. That was like a perfect opportunity to then play Wonderwall, and like, I feel like there were so many opportunities where they could have done more and they didn't do it.
And what you're saying makes sense because it almost feels like the script got cut up.
Yeah, and it makes it more about the love story.
Right.
You know?
And that would have been a way to juggle it because you could have had it be about both.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount of setup that they do for Eleanor Rigby, that he never cracks it. He never gets to, I mean, and it's a good setup too because who the fuck remembers the words to Eleanor Rigby? I don't know the words. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that fucking song. You know?
Yeah.
It's a great setup. They should have done something. And you brought up Wonderwall. Me and Jeremy were talking about Wonderwall. Like,
it's a Wonderwall is a point that they focus on and then completely drop, and it's
right,
annoying.
Which is a really interesting concept that it's not just the Beatles that left. You know, and you have all these things that are no longer here.
It's interesting because Wonderwall is important to
Their story,
to their relationship,
Yeah.
and they make a point to tell you that, and then they make a point to tell you that Wonderwall doesn't exist, and then they don't talk about it ever again.
Right,
And
because
it's
then
so
what song
disappointing.
did he play?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
What song did he play?
Which
exactly.
I kept expecting that we were gonna get a scene where she starts, catching on to it,
remembers.
and maybe says to him something to the effect of like, "What song did you play? How did we meet?"
Yeah.
If you had a scene like that, I mean, it would have been a little like Eternal Sunshine, but it really would have worked with what the story was, and it's almost like you set it up and then just didn't do it.
Yeah. With that being said, Lily James, even with them trying to make her not look good, bring her down to his level, because they say the whole
still
movie
way
that he's
out of
not a
his
good-looking guy and
Right.
things like that, and
And he really didn't seem to have too many redeeming qualities. Like,
Deadbeat.
yeah, he was just kind of going nowhere, a little like selfish in ways, and
the only time he seemed like a good person was whenever you saw flashbacks of them together. I enjoyed a lot of the comedy they threw into this. Obviously with the Beatles not being around, then
sorry.
it's all right. Oasis not being there, and then he starts looking up all these other people, sees that the Rolling Stones still exist, he sees that Childish Gambino still exists, thank the Lord.
And what it does really well with the comedy is that there are all these running jokes, but they don't get run into the ground.
Yeah,
which
they don't overdo it.
because it does a recurring joke correctly, which is that it's not the only joke.
Exactly.
And there are other things going on. So every time they bring it up, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was funny.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more all of these things where it's like the parts are greater than the sum. Where clearly there's a good movie wrapped up in here. There's a great movie
It's just
wrapped up in
missing
here.
those last couple pieces of the recipe.
Right. And as an audience member, I have a really hard time getting behind, you were right there,
And it seems like nowadays the general public is more into just blindly accepting something as being great without really saying, no, this could have been better. It was good, but it
Right.
could have been
God
better.
forbid you critique things nowadays.
Yeah.
Even if you like Beatles music, I don't enjoy listening to him sing it as much as the Beatles.
Yeah, I think the Beatles do it better, but I think at the same time, I did enjoy his voice, and I did enjoy the slightly modern take on certain songs. Like, some were a little more upbeat, some were just, very slightly musically different.
I'm with Jeremy. I wasn't really impressed with
I
his-
wasn't, hugely impressed
See-
either, but it's still nice to, sometimes just essentially hear covers of songs.
I think that was done on purpose, though, that he wasn't the best musician ever, because this movie very clearly is coming from the place of this is the most important music that's ever been written.
Yeah.
So the movie's telling you that it's the writing that's what's good about it, and he's not the part that works.
I mean, I don't care if it was intentional. It just goes back
Oh,
to that
I agree.
didn't enjoy listening to it as much as I would have enjoyed listening to the Beatles sing it.
Which is
Right.
why I'm glad at the end they played the Beatles instead of playing him.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this movie a solid C+. It's not a bad movie, but it's not what I'm looking for, what was advertised to me, so I can't go higher than that. And I am a little disappointed, but I will say there are big pieces that I enjoyed. It's not a bad C, it's just a middle of the road C+.
I guess it's gonna be a D+ for me. D+ for disappointing, and I think missed potential.
I'm gonna go B-, and
Okay.
that's primarily because of Lily James and her boobs and butt. If we're going with the alliteration here. No, I love Lily James, and honestly, anytime that she was on the screen, I just couldn't stop just falling in love with her, even with her not looking that great. Don't care.
I'm gonna go with Ollie, and I'm gonna give it a C+ because I know that Marco enjoyed it more than me, so I feel like to give it a B-, which is what I was teetering on, would be like not a proper grading, I guess. So I'm gonna go with the C+ also. For the most part, I really did just enjoy Lily James. I just love her. I wish she was in more stuff. You know, I just think that she's like very magnetic, and I feel like when she's in a movie, it's like Marco said, you're just kind of like drawn to her.
Can't help
She's
it.
great.
Yeah, and I think she's slept on a little bit, and she shouldn't be. Wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it would be better than it was. It wasn't bad. It was okay. Probably won't watch it again. I've said all these things already, so yeah, C+.
All right, let's close the book on yesterday.
All right.
Worry about today or tomorrow.